Hi there folks, and welcome to another Mr. Wed webcast. In this edition we're talking about unpacking a unit of competency. So first things first, get yourselves over to training.gov.au. Now today we're just going to choose a unit at random. Today it's going to be contribute to health and safety of self and others. And as we scroll down the page, we'll finally come about halfway down the page to the content section where you can download a couple of documents, these being the unit of competency and the assessment requirements. So they kind of look like this when you download them, and you really need to look at these documents in tandem. They should be read together. First of all, though, I'm going to look at the unit of competency and break that down. When we're looking at the unit code and title, you're probably wondering where it all came from. In terms of the title, this describes the unit outcome, and it must comply with the AVITMES standard, which means it can't be any longer than 100 characters. In terms of the code, it does differ between different areas, but ultimately this is the core way that it's put together. So the first three letters, this will be the training package code. So in this case, it's the BSB Business Services Training Package. Following that, we've got the field or stream, and our example this time means that this unit comes from the Workplace Health and Safety stream. Following that, it has the AQF level, which means that this unit was first packaged within a Certificate 2 qualification. Now, not every unit of competency does this, but the business services one does in this particular case. And then finally, the last two digits relate to the sequence or series of the unit. And in this example, it's the first unit in the sequence within the Workplace Health and Safety stream. So let's take a closer look at the actual unit of competency. Now, at the top of the page, you'll see the modification history. This just shows you what version you should be using so you know that you're using the most up-to-date one. Following that, you've got this application statement which describes how the unit should be practically applied, who would typically use it, and in the end, the relationship it has to licensing, legislation, and any other certification requirements. At the bottom of this page, we have the unit sector, and this really just helps us to categorize the unit within its industry sector. So in this case, it's all about workplace health and safety, which makes a lot of sense given its subject matter. Following this, we have our elements and our performance criteria. And these really are the building blocks and some of the most important things we need to find to both deliver and to assess our candidates. So the element describes the essential outcomes and the significant functions and tasks that make up the competency. It tends to be a broad statement of the end result, whereas the performance criteria describes the performance required or needed to demonstrate the achievement of that element. And it tends to be more specific in terms of the conditions that need to be present to say that someone has achieved competency. What you'll notice here as well is that they use verbs in front of each of these statements, whether they be elements of performance criteria. We've got those doing words, so work or follow or identify or contribute. And this kind of puts it into context about whether it's going to be knowledge or skill that we have to plan for or to assess for. Next up, we have the foundation skills, and this section describes the language, literacy, and numeracy, as well as the employment skills incorporated within the performance criteria that ultimately are required for competent performance. And this is important for us to plan for because we have to capture that our candidates can read and write and use oral communication, etc. Really get those core skills under control, not just the information we found on the previous page, the elements performance criteria. So it is important to make sure that we have all of the unit of competency in our mind when we're looking to create learning opportunities, as well as when we're trying to capture the proof of someone's competence. At the bottom of the page, we have the unit mapping information, which is pretty much just telling us how this latest version is mapped back to the previous versions. This might be useful when we're doing things like RPL, and we can identify how much credit somebody may be able to get for a previous incarnation of a unit. And on the final page, we have the links. And this essentially links you to the companion volumes where you can get access to the implementation guides. So if you follow this link, it takes you to the VetNet website, and you can pretty much scroll down this page, find the training package that relates to the unit that you're covering, and you can get the information and guidance that you need for implementation of that unit. It'll provide guidance for contextualization, it'll define key terms, and also talk to you about the structure of skill sets and whatnot. So as we move on, let's have a look now at the assessment requirements. Again, we've got the titling at the top and the modification history. Following this, we've got some of the most important information within this process. First of all, we have the performance evidence, and this specifies what individuals must do to show that they satisfy the performance standards that are outlined in the unit of competency. So this is very much a focus of our assessment practice. We need to make sure we have evidence of each of these bullet pointed items. Below that, we have the knowledge evidence, and this specifies what individuals must know in order to carry out the work that's described in the tasks. So again, this is something we need to focus on very specifically when we're creating our assessment tools. But let's not forget that we also have to give people a chance to practice this in their learning journey as well. So it's important that we look at both sides of the picture. And on the final page of the assessment requirements, we have the assessment conditions. And these describe the mandatory conditions for the assessment. And this could include things like the equipment and material that should be used, physical conditions and timeframes, and it will also specify some of the assessor requirements as well. So in summary, here are the key components from the unit of competency and the assessment requirements. We start off with the elements and performance criteria, and this gives us a picture of performance, what somebody needs to do as a result of the training to be competent. And the foundation skills lets us know what those same people have to do to be functional in the workplace. At the bottom of the page, we have the links, and this gives us information for the implementation guide, which lets us know how we should be applying those units of competency. On the other side, the two key pieces of information that help us out are the performance evidence and the knowledge evidence. This time, the idea here is this is what somebody needs to be able to prove knowledge-wise and skills-wise to be able to demonstrate their competence. Then we have the assessment conditions, which lets us know how the assessment should be undertaken. And once again, we have the links at the bottom to those companion volumes. Ultimately, when you first look at a unit of competency, it can feel a little daunting. It's a bit like this quote from Matt Preston from MasterChef when he was looking at one of Heston Blumenthal's creations here, this dessert we see on the screen. When you look at it, you won't know where to start or how it was made. Now, what I'm going to do is take it up a level and look at how this example can be like unpacking a unit of competency. So bear with me. So here's the dish we have to make. And if you like, the elements are the parts of this dish. So all the little elements of this dish are, in the end, what we have to be able to prove somebody can do. And the performance criteria will give us the conditions, if you like, of how we're going to judge the success. And if you've ever watched MasterChef or one of those cooking shows, you know that you have this panel of judges who will take the dish from one of the participants, and they will judge it on a series of criteria. It could be flavor, technique, presentation, the use of time, or any number of other things, just like we do with a unit of competency. So we've got the elements, which is what they have to be able to do, and the criteria, which helps us to judge the success of those elements. Then when we look at the performance and knowledge evidence, this is a little bit like the proof that it was done right. And just like in MasterChef, they'll break it up into product and process. So the product is the end result. Does it look like what it's supposed to look like? But the process is just as important. Did they carry it out in the correct steps? Does it, follow the recipe in the way it was intended? So in a unit of competency, often when we're looking at performance and knowledge evidence, it's all about making sure we got the right product, but also was the journey correct? Did they follow the correct protocols, the correct processes, the ways of getting it from A to B, as it were? Then we have the foundation skills. And remember, this is all about making sure that we're functional in a workplace setting. So in this case, we could be using things like reading recipes, writing a shopping list, asking for feedback, measuring ingredients, identifying expectations, or even working with others in the kitchen. So this sort of covers those key foundation skills of reading, writing, oral communication, using mathematical techniques, as well as navigating the world of work. Finally, though, it's all about being able to visualize the competency. Whether it's MasterChef or using our own unit of competency, we have to have a really good picture of what an end result needs to look like. What does someone who demonstrates competent performance actually look like? We might need to ask ourselves a few questions, such as, who is the job or task performed by? Or what type of workplace would it normally be done in? Perhaps what would they need to know or be able to do? So once you start to ask yourself these questions, you get a chance to see the big picture. This is what competent performance looks like, and we use that key information from our unit of competency and the assessment requirements to build that picture. Well, folks, that's it for me. Thanks for joining me on another Mr. Weird webcast. This time we were unpacking a unit of competency. Hopefully we've demystified it a bit and used that MasterChef analogy to make it real. If you've ever got a question, feel free to call us on free call 1-800-287-246. Otherwise, all my other details are on the screen now. Until next time, have fun putting this stuff into practice, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.